morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just like to thank you very much for the invitation, for having me here. You'll have to bear with me. I'm not an accomplished lecturer, so I think I'm just a boy who gets their hands dirty. All right. So, where's our little? Here we go. This is the tool. All right. So basically, just to let you fill in with the picture where we're at. Oh, we're away. What have I done? Turned it off. It's cup of tea time. There we are. Here we go. Thank you. That's it.
Press F5.
F5.
On the computer.
Okay, my technical assistance. All right, here we go. I'll keep away from the computer. All right. Okay, just to let you know where we are, we're located somewhere between Crookle and Goulburn on the Great Dividing Range. Our altitude is 850 to 1,000 metres. So consequently, our temperatures aren't exactly real warm, as you will soon see. Everything looks real nice there, green grass and some fat cows, well, a couple of them, sort of thing. So where we are is actually on the Great Dividing Range. We're on the watershed, which means some of the water that lands on our place goes to the west, and some of it actually goes to the east. So that in itself becomes problematical because we are actually some of the places in the Sydney Catchment Authority area. Okay, now that says it all about our climate. We're experiencing very heavy frosts, very low temperatures during the winter. Our average temperature for June and July was 6 degrees. So, as consequently, grass growth is about zip. So anybody tells you, the grass is growing at, 20 kilos per hectare per day, well, they're getting carried away up our way, I can assure you. So consequently, what does that mean to our production? There's another little nice picture. That was a fall of snow we had last year. It was 3/4 of a metre deep. That was coupled with loss of power for 5 days. It was a really wonderful time. I don't think it became a bit problematical to get about. Anyway, I'll just have a quick look here, get my notes so I don't miss anything too much. The property itself, getting back to it, it's 620 hectares. The history of it is we were established in 1865, so we've been there a little while. During that time, it's expanded 3 times, but future expansion has become very difficult because our region is now considered the new Bowral, i.e. the people have cashed up, merchant bankers and the like seem to think this is the place to be, so they come and join us and consequently increased land values from about $700 a hectare to about $7,000 a hectare. I mean, that in itself creates an opportunity if you take to use it, but I'm not really interested in asset increase. I'm more interested in what I can do with the asset. I mean, that's my business and that's what the family's done. All right, in the early 1970s, we actually became specialists. Well, actually prior to the 70s, the farm was producing fat lambs, bull sheep, a few cattle, a few potatoes, and grew a few crops. So, it was very much a mixed enterprise, and we probably did none of them very well. In the early 70s, my father took the decision that the way to go was to become a specialist producer because he felt at that time he didn't like sheep. Potatoes are hard work, and the crops usually didn't work real well anyway. So, became specialists, and because you become specialists, you become good at what you do because you've got to make money at it. You're not relying on other enterprises to prop your business up. So of course, becoming specialists in the early 70s, we were just in time to catch the beef crash in 73, which went through to 76. That in itself was a learning curve when you put all your eggs in one basket. But we actually survived that, and the reason was because we were good at what we did. Well, we think we're good at what we did, but anyway, we were able to identify the areas where we could make money and the areas that was costing us money, move away from it. From there, performance recording was also introduced in the 1970s. Just remember, if you don't measure it, you don't know, and benchmark yourself, you don't know how you're performing. Otherwise, you're just guessing, and it all becomes pub talk. And I don't go to the pub. Never did, so anyway. All right, in the early 70s too, we also developed a direct supply chain where we actually supplied 2 butcher shops, one in Crookle, one in Goulburn, with cattle every week. And we did that, and we supplied those shops for 9 months of the year. The rest of the time of the year they went into the marketplace and bought them. That relationship lasted 19 years. The main reason why that sort of failed is the butcher shop in Goulburn closed down. He must have been paying me too much money for the meat. And the other thing was the difficulty getting the meat processed. Originally we were actually killing it in a little shed in Crookle. Went to Goulburn. Goulburn abattoir shut. Went to Mossvale. It's shut. Went to Queanbeyan. It's shut. So it was all good. Then after that, so it became very difficult to bring small quantities of meat, or small numbers of cattle down to these processors because of the transport costs. It also took a lot of time on our part to bring these cattle in every week, draft them up. But it also meant it was actually quite expensive. The butchers had difficulty getting the meat back to their shops. From there, we actually ended up getting involved with Woolworths, and we actually had contracts to supply them that ran for about 7 years. That was extremely successful for us. We had a good relationship with them. And I think the only reason for that was we were able to produce the article they required on time and when they wanted it. That went for 7 years. The main reason why that changed, first of all, we killed in Queanbeyan, it shut. Went to Blaney, it shut. Went to Wagga. Woolworths and Wagga had obviously a difference of opinion somewhere along the line at one stage. So they ended up going to Rockdale. So we ended up taking cattle there. That went fine. And then Tees Cargill bought Tamworth, so all the Woolworths cattle went up to Tamworth. Now, to send cattle from home to Tamworth, it was about 12 hours in a truck. Many dark cutters and losses for that. I didn't think it was fair in the stock, and while the money was still there, we opted to leave them. And also, Woolworths management, we actually ended up dealing with some different people in Woolworths, and they had different approaches to meat. And now the supermarkets are becoming very, very fiercely competitive against one another, and consequently, it's sort of put a downward pressure on suppliers. Getting back to that temperature, our temperature range is -10 to 40 degrees, so we've got a huge range. Our average rainfall is 750 millimetres, but it's very variable. It ranged from 290 mils in the early 80s, I can remember that, we actually had dust storms, to 1290. Currently this year, for the last 3 months, May, June, July, we've actually equivalent to our annual rainfall of 750 mils. So we're either going to have a ripper drought from now on, or it's really wet. That in itself, this wet year, has actually highlighted the problem with my system. The ground is just so wet. You get 5 mils of rain now, the water's running out of the top of the ground on the hills. Feeding the stock under our system using the equipment we've got, it's quite heavy. So instead of going horizontally, you tend to spend more time going vertically. So it's a little bit of a drama. The soils on the place, it's 10% basalt, 90% granite, and soils are quite acidic and also high in aluminium. Pastures are predominantly Phalaris fescues, as well as ryegrasses and undersown subclovers. Currently another slide, okay. What have we got, darling? Oh, I don't want that one. That's later. All right. Currently, it's managed by the 4th and 5th generation. I'm the 5th, and the 6th intends to return home in the long run. Currently, there's 2 full-time labour units on the place, and at peak times, we employ additional 3 staff to handle the silage operations and a little bit of casual work when we've got a lot of cattle work on. Basically, I best describe myself as a grass farmer who uses cattle to value add. We run 400 breeding cows on 620 hectares. Well, it's about roughly 600 useful hectares. The other 20 now have been given over to wildlife corridors, which contains wombats, kangaroos, blackberries, no pigs, And the latest addition is deer. So, yeah. And I have a little problem with kangaroos because I'm surrounded with, what would you call it, city-centric neighbours. Lead shot is sort of no longer an option. But anyway, we'll work on it. So getting back to the cows, 400 cows, breeding cows, that's what we actually aim to carve down. And included in that are 70 stud cows, from which we supply our own bulls from, and we're using AI and a little bit of ET work. That in itself is another big story. The herd's split equally into two, an autumn and spring herd, and we single sire mate. This is because of performance recording. Now, it's a lot of work, no doubt, but in the long run, it pays. We join only for 6 weeks. Pregnancy rates of 95% in the cows, 87% in the heifers. Now, because we run 2 joinings, we actually run our heifers around, instead of having them carved down 2-year-old, we carve them at 2.5. Now, that has lots of advantages and a few disadvantages, but the main thing is you get more live calves. Your heifers, when you wean them, you can stick them out the back and they can just struggle to survive because they'll be at their joining weight because of age and maturity, but more importantly, they go back in calf straight away on that first calf, because that's one of the biggest problems you have with 2-year-old heifers is getting them back in calf. They've got a calf tugging on them and they're cutting their permanent teeth at the same time, and they just fall away and they're not gaining sufficient condition to go back in calf. So by taking them around that 6 months, in my particular system, because I've got a split herds, I can do it and it works extremely effectively. One of the drawbacks of that is it allows the animal to express their genetic growth. Consequently, my heifers are significantly bigger than a lot of people in the district because they've been allowed to grow out before they've come under the pressure from the animals dragging on. Now, people say to me, oh, your cattle are too big, they're going to be eating an awful lot of feed. Well, they do eat more feed, there's no doubt about it, but the point is, an animal that's been stunted because of malnutrition basically will still eat, I believe, just as much as a bigger animal. You look at this ourselves, little people don't eat less food. Look at me. Classic example. And you get tall, skinny fellas sort of thing, big people, they can eat a power of feed, and yet they're poor feed converters. So, in my regime, they're out the door. Okay, all right. So also we early wean. We wean at 6 months when the oldest calf is at 6 months of age. Yard weaned from anywhere from about, we try to do it 5 to 10 days. Usually it runs about 7. It just sort of coincides how things work out. Currently the production is aimed at the heavyweight feeder steer, which is up around close to that 500 kilo mark, or the 300 kilo dressed weight steer, and that's where we've been operating there at the moment, aged 15, 16 months. Basically they're sold still with milk teeth. Opportunity trading has been done in the past, but I haven't done it recently because I didn't think there was enough money in it. It'd be interesting to see. I understand there's a trader here going to do a presentation later, but yeah, also risk analysis. Biosecurity is another big issue, and John tells me I've got 5 minutes. I haven't been up here that long, John. Right, okay. There's a comment made by John Francis that he found that his clients, that they found across some of their clients, that 60% of the profits are only made 20% of the time. Well, that's not just good enough, is it? I mean, I can't go to the manager and say, I'm going to make this much money these years, and these other years where you'll have to help me. Doesn't necessarily mean you make a loss, but so you've got to look at why that is so. And we found it's mainly to do with food availability, not just the value of your markets on the other end. So we found it very frustrating to have a good genetic base, or what we think is a good genetic base, to lose a lot of it when seasons became tight because you had to sell them out the door. So by the time you got your numbers back up and got your momentum going, you're just in time to catch the next drought. That's basically what seems to be happening in the cycle. So we thought there must have been a better way. Also, too often you miss your market specs running on a straight grazing regime because cattle don't perform when you haven't got grass. So, but also, if you have to make money, you've got to have a lot of saleable units. So, herd health is also another issue that we had within our production system. Grass tenting, it was, well, even now it's knocking a lot of cattle in our district because they're not being fed. So we've tried a number of different systems: grass, cereal crops was where we first started, and also grain supplementation in different forms. First of all, with the cereal crops, it was a feast or famine situation. If you didn't get them in early, i.e. you had to have the rain to get them in early, sort of thing. If you didn't have your crop up and ready to graze by about the second week of March, you had no feed going into winter. That was it. The old timers would say, the feed that you have on the 25th of April, that's what you've got to play with in the winter. And too often or not, you actually miss that window. And then with a year like this, with crops in the winter time, or your low country, you could write it off. It just plain died. With cereal grain, we started using that, but we found the price of the cereal grains varied a lot in our production system. We were paying anywhere for 1 year $178 a tonne landed, up to about $465, I think, was the dearest stuff we paid in the millennium drought in the 90s. So, you know, that really made big dents in your bottom line. Hybrid ryegrasses we used instead of cereal grains. That did help a lot, but unfortunately hybrid ryegrasses tended to peter out within 2 or 3 years, again needed resowing. So we kept on looking, what could we do? And then we realised there was this thing staring us in the face in the springtime. We had this surplus grass that we could not fully utilise. And then we thought about it a bit more and decided we better use it or lose it. Because what actually happens is, when grass becomes dry in our environment, you usually get hit with a summer storm and then you may as well throw it away because it's, that bad you wouldn't even ask your chooks to nest in it, to be honest. It's just wasted grass. So we looked at that situation and thought how we could utilise it. So we started using silage, and this is just a few systems, things we use. We actually, when we first started in silage, father actually started in about 1959 with square bale silage, believe it or not. He was sort of a bit ahead of his time there. But they're only little tiny bales about this big. But then since then we evolved into different systems, from single chop, double chop to precision chop. We considered round bale silage and big square, well, round bale silage in particular, too expensive and not practical for what our aim was. And that is to produce a cheap bulk material to maintain stock and hopefully produce a reasonably good product to gain weight, because that's what I'm paid for. It's not like a sheep. So a sheep will grow wool on just about nothing, sort of thing, whereas cattle, the only thing you do is growing meat. So there's that's the roughest job there. He's got to push the silage up. That first pit's about 1,000 tonne pit. It's what we call a drought buster pit. He's not opened very often. For most practical purposes, it's too big. The face is too big. This is just one of the most important jobs, rolling it. That's just the conditioner we use. In that particular system, if you have a bad bobtail spring, which does sometimes happen, the machinery doesn't come out of well, it happens quite often actually. The machinery doesn't come out of the shed. You can have a very ordinary spring. We can actually make silage when you can't make hay, simply because you're cutting early in the season. With hay, by the time you've got it dry, put it together, there's nothing left to rake it up, there's nothing there. With this system, because it's wet materials, we can actually rake 9 metres in one windrow, but mostly we don't have to. The yields are heavy enough. Okay, and that's just the equipment we use. That's just a 6-tonne tip trailer we pull behind a tractor, and we've also got a 9-tonne tip truck we run as well. That bin there takes about 8 minutes to fill, the truck 13 minutes in reasonable going. Capacity wise, we can travel over about 15 hectares a day, normally, with a team of about 5 people. And that's the end product. We actually use a meal on table type situation where we actually use transportable feed troughs just there. They're just sort of rubber belting in a metal frame. They're about 6 metres long, and it significantly reduces your wastage. We found when we're using round bale hay and that on the ground, we've lost an awful lot of, in wet conditions, feed on the ground from trampling, even the feeders. So we use that system. There are drawbacks with that, but anyway, there's some cut early in the morning sort of thing. There you are, and there's some more happy customers, some cows and 3 months. They're actually 3 months old calves there. So anyway, I'll just go over the page and see what else I've got to say. So silage is our solution. The quality of our silage, it runs in proteins from 12 to 18%, and the energy 8 to 9.5. I mean, you can make better quality silages. We have, but we found the source material, i.e. The pastures, particularly the fescues and to a degree the flares, don't lend itself to real high quality silages. So straight silage only lends itself to moderate weight gains of about 0.8 to a kilo a day in young cattle. And so from there we found out that by purchasing this feed mixer thing that we used, it gave us more options because we can actually adapt our feed to meet requirements. The cows themselves, for example, because of the grass tetany issue, we can throw some coarse mag into that ration. For the young growing cattle, we can actually beef it up with cereal grains, mill byproducts such as mill mix, ethanol syrup, breadcrumbs is another one. You can use, it gives you options. So you can use byproducts. Because we're close to Cindy, we can get some of those. It's not an option sometimes for some of those, but probably the more important thing that will get you a little bit interested and make you pay attention, well, not really, but is this is a ration mix we use for feeding to our steers at the moment, and this is the costings we're using. We're costing our silage in at $100 a tonne dry matter. Now that's probably a bit higher than what the industry considers, but if you don't overinflate your prices on some things in the near future, because costs will go up, by the time you're making your investment and everything, you'll be out the door. So that's what we've costed at. This is a ration. We're using wheat. We actually use a product called soda wheat. It's caustic soda treated wheat, which results in a better utilisation of grain as compared to rolling milling. The only next thing that's better than that is steam flaking, but we don't have the infrastructure for that. And also currently we're using ethanol syrup, which is a very, very good product if you can handle it. It took me 2 years of mucking around to work out whether we could handle it or not, but it's going fine. Okay, now this is the yearling steers. This year they've been gaining 1.6 kilos a day. They were doing a bit better than that, but the continuous wet weather we had in June and most of July, well, June we had 27 wet days, July was 22 wet days, and the other days I don't think the sun came out, so it was very grey weather, I can tell you. Now the cost per gain during that period was $2.30 a day. Now that's a bit frightening, but what's really important is the cost of weight gain, and the cost of weight gain on that ration was $1.44. In addition to that, you've got to remember you're actually value adding your silage, so that's extra profit too. All right, so I'll let you do your own numbers on whether you can make a profit on that or not. It's not rocket science. I'm not from NASA, but anyway, that's where we're heading. This is just an opportunity thing we did with some coal cows. Chopper cows, they're only fit for going down to Monbeef, they were porous. Yeah, they weren't real good order, put it that way. Yeah, so, we fed them for maybe 70 days. They had a weight gain of 2.46. They can go like mad, but my crikey, their food conversion goes out the window too. They eat an awful lot of food. But the important thing was their weight gain. The cost of weight gain was $1.37 per kilo. Now with all these cattle, particularly those steers, they're HGP free, and also no inopores we used either. So I'm sort of just putting it back up behind my arm there, that point of view. in that particular situation, there was a change in value of the animal from a chopper cow from $3.80 a kilo, that was what we had an offer at the time, to $4.45. Now, interesting enough, those cows, because where we sent them up to Wingham actually, 95% of them graded MSA, or cut space type system. Those steers, we actually killed them a few weeks ago down here in Wagga. We had, what was it, average dress weight of about 290 kilos, returning just over $1,800 a head, just over $1,800 a head. A 100% MSA compliance. Oh, sorry, there was one missed out in company specs, missed out in grading because of bruising. So it can be done. I guess just through persistence and having a go, sort of thing, and taking pride in what you do. Sometimes it puts money in your pocket. Other times you do it for the experience and you get a bit wiser on it. So anyway, that's my job done. So I hope, take-home messages, I believe, have a passion for what you do and you will excel in what you do. If you don't like your job, get another job. That's basically the way we see it. So anyway, thank you very much.